Have you ever noticed it always seems to be the people who travel the most that seem to get hacked? Well, this is probably why, and how to prevent it. Let's go! This one was completely my fault. We live in a world where everybody is connected these days, and so when you go motorcycle touring, it's expected that you'd be carrying technology with you, from your laptop to your phone or your tablet. It doesn't really matter what. You will always be connected in some way. And that's what hackers rely on. And before you wonder, no, this isn't a VPN advert. I'm not going to talk about VPNs. We all know what VPNs are. Use them, don't use them. It's at your discretion. They're definitely better to use. I'm not advertising anyone. Not about that life. Just practical steps about avoiding getting hacked. So let's go. Now let's start with your most vulnerable device, which is your mobile phone. Your mobile phone contains an app for almost every sensitive piece of data in your life, from your emails to your banking and even your social media. In addition to this, there is a large vulnerability when it comes to your phone, which is it requires charging every single day, making it the perfect device to exploit if you're a hacker. So how exactly are they gaining access to your phone? And it's very simple, and not a lot of people are aware of this. As I mentioned before, we're becoming increasingly connected as a society, and that means that it's becoming more and more commonplace for USB charging wall sockets to pop up. I see them on trains, on buses, and even in cafes and restaurants now. However, if you're a hacker, this is the perfect opportunity to gain access to someone's device. And why is that exactly? Well, when you plug a data cable into your phone from a computer, it allows you to access all of the information on your phone, especially when somebody hasn't set up their settings to alert them if a data transfer is occurring on their phone. So how do I avoid being hacked from a USB wall socket? Well, the simple solution is do not plug your phone in. Don't plug it in. At the end of the day, you're relying on the establishment having installed that correctly. You're relying on the establishment being aware that it's been installed, and you're relying on the fact that somebody didn't come along and replace the faceplate to gain access to your phone. And if that's not enough to scare you, I can tell you that's something that is. When you're giving your phone access to this wall socket to charge it, you're giving access to potentially all of your files. And yes, hackers could steal files from your phone, but they could also put illegal files on your phone. Imagine you're just going about your busy day and suddenly you find a whole variety of horrific things on your phone and you suddenly have no idea how they got there. You know, there's a lot of people who are malicious out there who are intent on ruining people's lives, whether it's for personal gain or whether it's just for fun. So don't plug USB wall plugs into unknown sockets. So what can you do instead? You might need to charge your phone. You might be really, really desperate. This might be the only way you can charge your phone. And you might be thinking, hey, what if I turn my phone off? No. Somebody who's really good at what they do, it doesn't matter whether your phone is on or off, they will gain access to it. That is not going to protect you. However, what will protect you is using a wall plug. And the reason that these work is because these do not permit data transfer. So if you're going to be carrying a USB cable and you might need to charge your phone, always make sure you're carrying a wall plug. And if you're in a different country, a wall plug adapter, obviously. This is going to prevent data transfer from your phone, and it's going to prevent hackers from gaining access to your phone. So what other solutions do we have? Well, the other solution that's really commonplace in the tech industry is lovingly known as, I don't want to say it, but it's lovingly known as a cable condom. So this is a small device that slots on to the end of your charging cable, and basically what it does is it prevents data transfer. So how exactly does this prevent data transfer? Well, basically the data pins have been ripped out. Well, it wasn't built with them, basically. So when you plug your phone into the wall, as long as you have a cable condom on the end of it, it will help prevent you being hacked. Now, this is a really great solution because obviously it's really, really cheap. You can buy these for pennies. They're just so cheap. They're easy to carry around. If you can carry a cable, you can carry this. What I will say is make sure where you're buying them from is a legitimate source. And there is a specific way to check if it actually is data blocking. So there are some USB condoms that come with all 4 prongs intact when you look inside. But basically you're going to be looking for a condom that only has 2 prongs intact, which will allow your phone to be charged, but it won't allow for data transfer. So I never ever travel anywhere without one of these. This is my go-to. I use it at airports, I use it on the bus, I use it on the train. If I'm going to plug my phone in, it gets plugged in with one of them. I don't raw dog my data. So Finally, one of the safer solutions is of course just to use a battery pack. If you charge and bring your own power and you just don't use public outlets to start with, you are going to be significantly safer from being hacked on the road. At the end of the day, if you're charging a battery pack from a wall outlet and then you're using that battery pack to charge your phone, there is never going to be a scenario where a hacker gains access to your phone from a wall outlet. You are very, very safe. Now, all of these solutions provide a different variety of ways to keep your phone safe from charging outlets. However, they pretty much all do the same thing. Whichever one you want to use is up to you. Obviously, there are benefits and pros to each one. Like this one, you can pretty much just throw in your pocket. It's always there. It's the kind of thing you want to have many of them, one in every bag, one in every pocket. You know, it's just always one of those things that you want. You can even get like ones on little key rings that stay on your keys. The benefits of this one is obviously you always have power regardless of where you go. So you don't have to worry too much about finding somewhere to charge your phone and putting yourself at risk. That is, and obviously this one, it will work anywhere. Like you find a wall plug socket, you can use it. Most of the time, places that have USB wall sockets also have plug sockets too. So if you're going to find a USB socket, you'll also find one in the wall. But all of these methods will prevent you from being hacked from a wall outlet. So take it on board, do as you will. Do take that on board. Genuinely, I've seen so many people get hacked this year. Now let's say you've had an absolute sprocket of a day where everything that could go wrong has gone wrong and you've lost your luggage and you don't have access to any of these safety devices. What exactly can you do? So there are two steps that you can take that will minimize the risk of being hacked from a wall socket. It's not necessarily a foolproof plan. It's just two extra steps you can kind of take to help safeguard yourself. But again, it's not going to eradicate the risk of being hacked, but it will minimize it to an extent. So the first thing that you can do is you can go into your mobile phone settings and you can put on what's called restrictive charging mode. So this is the idea that the phone will not allow an individual to access your phone whilst it's charging. Now, if somebody is a supreme hacker who's really, really talented, the chances are they're still going to be able to brute force their way into your phone. And that's not going to stop them. There's ways around it. But for the vast majority of hackers who aren't so good, it will help prevent them from accessing your phone. Again, it's not going to prevent you from being hacked, but if it's an absolute emergency and you're desperate, it's an additional layer of security you can add to your phone. Now, the secondary step that you can take as well is once you put your phone in restrictive mode, you can then switch your phone off. Again, it's not going to prevent someone who's incredibly talented at accessing devices, but it will add an additional layer of security. Obviously, these two steps are a lot more difficult to do when your phone has run out of charge. So I do recommend turning on restrictive mode as a default. And then in the future, if you want to allow your phone to connect to your home computer, it will just send a pop-up asking you if you want to grant it access or not. So as long as you have that setting on by default and keep your phone turned off while it's charging, again, it's not going to prevent you from being hacked, but it'll help minimize that risk. And when you're in a bind and you just have no other option and you really need to take that risk, it's just going to add a little bit more security. And a little bit more peace of mind, just enough to help get you out of the mess. Now, I do just want to point out as well that the same risks that apply to your mobile phone from charging it from a wall socket also apply to your tablet. If it can be charged by USB and it permits data transfer via USB, it is at risk of being hacked by plugging into a wall socket via USB. So always keep plug sockets on you, always use a data condom, always try to avoid plug sockets altogether, try to use power banks, and again, if you are really desperate, you're having an emergency and you don't have any other choice, take the additional 2 steps that I recommended about using restrictive mode and keeping your phone off when charged. Now let's talk about the second way in which hackers gain access to your devices when you're on the road. I am of course talking about Wi-Fi access. It affects all of our devices from our laptops to our tablets to our phone. If it connects to Wi-Fi, it can probably be hacked. So how exactly are hackers gaining access to your devices through the Wi-Fi? I'm going to give you one example, which I have come to realize this last year not a lot of people know about. I've had quite a few friends hacked on the road, and when I'm trying to understand at what point their devices were lost, it usually sounds like it's this one. So One of the most common ways that hackers gain access to your devices through Wi-Fi is to create free Wi-Fi hotspots. So an example of this is you might go to a restaurant and the restaurant may have a Wi-Fi that says like restaurant name, free Wi-Fi. Or you may go into a city and it might be like Berlin, free Wi-Fi, London, free Wi-Fi. Did London provide the Wi-Fi? Who is providing that Wi-Fi? Who is giving you access to this device? And it's becoming a really common way for hackers to lure people into connecting to their networks. Now I wish that this was something out of a sci-fi movie, but it really is not. There are hackers who will walk around with a personal hotspot in their rucksack and an antenna, and they will just walk around cities, and this free Wi-Fi hotspot will pop up, and people will just make the assumption that it's been set up by someone legitimate, but ultimately you don't know who is creating these hotspots. Now, the exceptionally talented ones will even go on to create things like fake registration pages just to give the illusion that the network that you are connecting to is real, but it's not, and it's really hard to determine whether it is an actual safe network or not. And so part of the problem of that is they will walk around, they may stay in a location for an hour or two, they'll wait for everyone to connect to their network, and then they basically just grab all that data and then use it to hack you. So even if you think you're connecting to a secured network, you have to ask yourself, who is providing this network? Is it actually being provided by the restaurant I'm visiting, or is it being potentially provided by somebody who has malicious intentions? At the end of the day, we don't really know what we're connecting to, so don't just open up your phone, look for free Wi-Fi hotspots to connect to in order to connect to the internet. It's really, really dangerous, and it's not great, it's not safe. You don't know who is watching the data being transferred, you don't know who is providing you with that internet, so don't do it. Now, the other way that hackers gain access to your devices is by using a fake repeater. And what exactly is that? Well, have you ever been in a house where you have the Wi-Fi set up and it might work really well downstairs, but then you walk upstairs and suddenly there's no coverage? You might be aware of a device known as a repeater, and this is where it basically amplifies the network further on. So let's say you go into McDonald's and you know that McDonald's is a reliable source to use the internet, you know it's safe. Let's say you then leave McDonald's and go several streets down where you suddenly still have access to the McDonald's Wi-Fi. The chances are is that somebody has created a fake Wi-Fi repeater in the same way that they have a fake Wi-Fi access point. However, unsuspectingly, you won't be aware, because when you connect to it, you are given the McDonald's registration page, you can log in with your McDonald's account, and to you it all looks legitimate. However, it's very much the case that your data is being funneled through someone else's network, and if you transfer any secure information, they'll probably be looking at it. So yeah, it's a little bit dangerous. Now, the final method that hackers are gaining access to your devices through Wi-Fi is by hacking the network itself. Let's say you're in a hotel, you verify the hotel's login information, you have your own personal login, and it seems pretty safe to use. However, ultimately, you don't know if the hotel's Wi-Fi has been hacked itself. And so the data that you transfer over that network, including login details, banking information, you don't know if somebody's sat there and looking at it at the other end. I have stayed in a hotel once before, and it had a working cafe that I would work in during the day. And one day I realized, looking over to the wall, that their router was just sat there on the side. There was absolutely nothing stopping me taking an Ethernet cable and plugging that into the router and gaining access to all of the admin powers of the hotel network. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. When you connect to any Wi-Fi network, you are relying on two presumptions, and that is the router digitally secure? Did they even take any necessary steps to make sure that it can't be hacked over the network alone? Did they make sure that things like there's an extra layer of security? Did they make sure there's extra like two-factor? Did they make sure they even changed the router from the original settings? So many people will get a router in the post with the original login and an email or in a letter and never change it from those settings. The other presumption is you're assuming that they've kept that router physically secure, that both visitors and staff don't have access to that router and it's locked away. Most places where fraud occur, it does often happen that it is the staff, and sometimes hackers will deliberately seek employment that allows them to get access to things like that to commit fraud. You're working on the presumption that the hotel staff aren't hackers themselves, and we ultimately don't know that. So what steps can I take to avoid being hacked over public Wi-Fi? Well, the first one is really obvious. Don't connect to public Wi-Fi. And don't connect to public Wi-Fi and log into any of your accounts. If you're logged out of your Instagram, don't connect to any unknown Wi-Fi and then log into your Instagram. If you're logged out of your Facebook page, don't connect to any dodgy Wi-Fi and log into your Facebook page. Don't log into your online banking. Don't do it on Wi-Fi that you don't know. And on top of that, don't assume Wi-Fi is safe to connect to just because it's being provided by a hotel or a restaurant. You're assuming the hotel is reliable. You're assuming the staff are trustworthy. Now, the other step that you want to take is to disable autoconnect on all of your devices. When you leave your house for the day, when you get home in the evening, your Wi-Fi is most likely on and your phone will most likely auto-connect to your home network. You never get alerted for this. You never get told about this. And it's the same for all other networks. So for things like McDonald's or even like famous hotel chains, a lot of the time people will connect to these networks and they will save auto connect. And so if they're visiting McDonald's multiple times, it will automatically connect to the network and they won't think twice about this. For a hacker who's created a repeater network far away from McDonald's, you might find that you're traveling through an area and they have cloned the login information and your phone automatically connects to that network. You may be completely unaware that your phone is on somebody else's Wi-Fi, and the end result of that is that you might go to log into your bank to see how much money you've got, and you've pretty much just given someone else access and been completely unaware. So make sure you always turn off auto connect for networks. It's not good. Now you might be sat at home going, hey Saf, I'm a UK resident and now when I go abroad, because we're no longer part of the European Union, I get roaming charges. I can't use my phone as a hotspot. It's going to eat all of my data. I need to connect to public Wi-Fi. Do not connect to public Wi-Fi. Now, what I do recommend, however, is that you purchase a modern phone, especially if you're somebody like me who does a lot of social media stuff. Having a modern phone allows you to take advantage of eSIM situations. So if you don't know what an eSIM is, basically it's the same as a SIM card, but a digital version. Now, the reason you want access to eSIM capabilities is because it allows you to install apps where you can basically buy a regional SIM card, and with that comes low cost data. So for example, my phone supports eSIM technology, and so when I came to Spain, instead of using my roaming data from my UK plan, what I did was use an app to purchase a local Spanish SIM card, and then I purchased 50 gigabytes of data for £30. Again, it is an additional charge, but what that does mean is that I don't have to connect to any public Wi-Fi's, and I can use my phone as a personal Wi-Fi hotspot. I know that the app that I'm using is reliable, it's safe. I don't have to risk potentially getting hacked that way. I also have the luxury at the moment of having my own portable Wi-Fi access point, because I currently have the van with me and the van has access to Skylink, which I pay for monthly, and so I am basically carrying my home network around with me that I know is safe. Outside of that, I don't connect to any public Wi-Fi's. I either use my van Wi-Fi or I use my mobile phone as a hotspot. So yeah, that is the safest way. I will drop a link to an app that I use to provide my data. Do check if your phone supports eSIMs though. Some phones say they do support it and then they don't, which is a bit of a pain. But yeah, I have a Google Pixel which does support eSIM tech, and again, when I travel to another country, I just buy like a local SIM card with data, and that prevents roaming charges. So there you have it, Sprocketeers. That is how to prevent your devices from being hacked on the road. I've had a lot of friends get hacked this year, far more than should, and I've seen a lot of motorcycle influencers in particular getting hacked too. I know there was a famous adventure touring girl at the moment who only just recently got her account back. The chances are she was most likely hacked in one of the ways that I explained below. So I hope this has been really informational. I hope it helps you all stay safe on the road. Now, if you guys do want to see more great bike content, don't forget to hit subscribe. And in the meantime, ride safe, stay crazy, and I'll see you next week. Bye! This one was completely my fault.